So welcome, Lisa Eastley.
Hi.
Beautiful. Well, I really wanted to have you on so we could have a little chat about our upcoming menopause retreat, Wise Women in Menopause, coming up on the 3rd, 5th of May. And I'm so grateful for you to be coming as a guest teacher to share all your amazing wisdom in naturopathy. And I love talking to you. We can talk for hours, as we often do. So I'd really love, so maybe to kick off, maybe can you just introduce yourself and share how you support women on their menopause journey with all your tools and knowledge of naturopathy?
Yeah, okay. So so I'm a naturopath. I do Bowen therapy as well. So naturopathy I see as like this real sort of umbrella, you know. Within this umbrella, we train in diet, lifestyle intervention, herbs and nutrition. So
Mm,
we kind of, you know, know, we're not just, if someone comes, they won't just get herbs, like it allows me to treat exactly what's going on with the person and have a very big toolkit to do
mm,
that with.
mm,
Um, we also in our training, it's primarily sort of a Western modality, but we do touch on Ayurveda and TCM principles. And the other thing that I have done since I've finished, well, I mean, I don't know if you ever really stop studying when you're
mm.
there's always another course, there's always something else to do to learn about. So the learning never stops. Um, but I've done pretty extensive training in pathology interpretation. So those blood tests that you get, the GP orders, um, I actually, dare I say it, have more of a science-backed reference ranges than what the reference ranges that come from the pathology lab are.
Mm,
And also looking at things in correlation with each other.
mm,
Um,
mm.
yeah, so it's more of, yeah, so I get to have more of a holistic view of those results. And I can tell a lot about the person in front of me.
Mm,
It also allows me to not have to then order a lot of functional tests.
mm.
That can be really
So
expensive.
what I'm hearing, and I know this from having seen you and other women who come to you, is that it's so important for us to know individually what's going on with us in menopause, because I often hear and see popping up on Facebook or people talking about, I'll take this herb or this supplement, it's great for menopause. And I get really just concerned by these off-the-shelf marketers that are kind of, I think, catching women at a very vulnerable stage of their life.
Mm.
Because a lot of us are quite desperate if we've got a lot of challenges that come up in peri or in menopause. So
Ex-
to know individually and get a really in-depth picture of all, can you maybe just talk briefly about some of those indicators of what you look for, or what can go wrong, or what's changing that needs support?
Yeah, so well, let's start in perimenopause, okay? Because that's often when a lot that's that's often kind of our crunch time. Those few years, it can actually be up to 10 years before menopause. And those few years after menopause is when we actually do start seeing changes in the brain, changes in the cardiovascular system. They actually happen there. By the time we show symptoms in our 60s and 70s, it's
Mm,
these processes are happening, sometimes 20 years beforehand. So I think, it's getting a read on someone's symptoms. It's getting a read on how they've lived their life up until this point, you know, what their genetic predispositions are. So looking at their family history, you know, what, you know, did their parents die early of heart complications? You know, does dementia kind of tend to run in the family, or, you know, things like that. So it's looking at those sorts of risk factors for the individual, you know, because that will then determine what you really want to put in place to modify those risk factors, you know?
So I'm hearing true prevention here. Like, what I suppose I've noticed is a lot of women, particularly perimenopause, it's a bit like a crisis point sometimes with some symptoms, whether that's sleeplessness, whether that's, the hot flushes that are causing night sweats, or brain fog, or dry, itchy skin, or, the symptoms we can, there are
Oh,
so
there's
many.
so many.
And
There's
it's
so many.
often those, a lot of women, I don't think, when we enter perimenopause, are thinking of what I'm going to be like when I'm 70. We're kind of in the now. We've often got children or young children. We've often got aging parents. We've often got a career or a business. And it's like, it's the busiest time of our life.
It is a massive time of your life. There are so many demands on so many women at this point of our life where it's actually a really vulnerable time, you know, like we are even more vulnerable to stress during perimenopause. Our progesterone during perimenopause is heading down. You know, we're starting to have an ovulatory cycles. So cycles where we don't ovulate, right? We don't make progesterone if we don't ovulate. Okay. And look, this is normal. This really is normal. This
And
is
what
just
does progesterone do for us? So by going down.
so progesterone, you know, we know it as that reproductive hormone, but it's also a nervous system hormone. Okay, so it helps us feel good, it improves our mood, and it also allows us to cope better with stress. Okay, and so when we start losing it, and we're already in a really stressful phase of our lives, you know, because as you said, most of us still have got young children, aging parents, working as well. Like, it's a lot. It is a lot, you
And
know.
so when I hear that on a simplistic level, oh, maybe I just go and get progesterone tablets. So this is what I often hear of these quick fixes, or, but
Yes.
from what I understand is our hormonal system is so finely tuned with interrelated hormones, and blunt tools are not the way to go, because won't we then get complications or issues?
Well, so we've been okay, so this is my thing with all the hormones, MHT, menopause hormone replacement, which was known as HRT before. We don't really know what the long-term effects are. They've not been studied properly. They often aren't the cure-all, and they're not going to stop that progression of things. Do you know what I mean? Like, dementia or Alzheimer's is the number one killer of women. You know, elderly women, it's number one. It's not cardiovascular disease. It's not anything else. It's Alzheimer's. Okay. We know now that Alzheimer's starts in perimenopause because it's a major restructuring of the brain. We're being told at the moment that if we take progesterone or we take estrogen therapy, that it's that fixes everything for our brain, and it'll stop it. You know, like that's what I'm kind of seeing on, you know, in a lot of media. And it's actually not, it's not shown to do that.
And it's not known.
It's
The
not
long
known.
term. Yeah.
And I do just sort of think, you know, if we think of the oral contraceptive pill, so that's been around, gosh, see,
50s,
when I think of the 60s, I think it's like 30 or 40 years ago, whereas actually it's like 60 years ago now.
We're getting on, Lisa. Yeah.
Okay, just let me work through my denial here. So we were told that that was completely safe. We now know that it affects your bone mineral density. So these young girls who are being put on the pill to correct, irregular cycles and things like that, which it doesn't correct, it just masks.
Mm, mm,
These hormones just mask. Um,
mm.
they're not building the bone density than what they should.
I
You
mean,
know?
I think this is where my, I mean, I'm 56 now and have had many kind of different health issues arise. And my observation and experience of Western medicine and doctors is there's often these very blunt tools which are addressing one symptom, one part of the body. And so what I'm really hoping in this retreat is we're really offering women a more holistic perspective, that it's so as soon as I hear the thing about the progesterone declining and we're at a midlife where we're more stressful and therefore we're going to be more heightened to stress and less able to deal with stress. That sounds to me like, and this because I teach yoga, I'm like, well, right, this is where we up our yoga practice, where we make sure that every day we are doing something to nurture our nervous system, to bring
Mm.
down that stress. And and again, maybe we as yoga teachers often get criticized, well, where's the evidence of this? Well, I look at it as like, well, okay, we haven't got long-term evidence of any of these things. What
Mm.
innately feels better is that we're empowered with our choices and we're looking at this with a long-term view and doing as much as we can in an empowered way with practices, with
Mm.
herbs, with nutrition, with lifestyle. But I suppose what I do get from sometimes the pushback I get from women is I haven't got the time,
Yeah.
or I've tried that and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you say on that
With
kind
the
of
time,
time and that things don't, or
things don't work.
I've tried it and it doesn't work,
Yeah. Oh, look, I get that a lot with it. I've tried everything. I've tried that herb. I've tried this. I've tried that. I guess that because I get that a lot. And I think, okay, but so say someone goes, well, I've tried, I've tried drinking chamomile tea
Mm,
for stress,
mm,
you know? Okay. But what did you have? Oh, it was a tea bag. I had a tea bag each night. Okay, that's not a therapeutic dose.
mm.
The
And
herbs,
tea bags sit on the shelves for so many bloody years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not appropriate dose-wise.
Mm,
We don't know what quality that herb was exactly. We don't know how long it's been sitting there. Um, so
yeah.
you haven't tried
Well, and
chamomile.
also I think my because I went in what would say an early perimenopause, but like it was a 10-year journey, and
Mm.
it was not like I could do something for a day or a few weeks or even for a year. It is it's an ongoing relationship with self of working with what symptom, because it's not the same symptom for those 10 years. Like when I say to women, my
No.
perimenopause was 10 years, and they go, oh my God. No, it wasn't the same. There was probably maybe 3 years of some hot flushes. Then I mean, my most recent is my bone density, and I've been working with you with that. So it's kind of, which how I know I should have been working on that earlier, but I was in a bit of crisis mode, as so many of us are,
Yeah, yeah.
when
And
it can
I
really,
think that's the thing to realize too, is that you may have tried something, but that may not have been appropriate for you at that point.
mm,
But now it may be,
yeah.
because perimenopause and menopause are transition times.
Mm,
I mean, menopause things should be starting to settle down. By the time so menopause is classed as, 12 months after your last bleed.
mm,
Okay. So by then our hormones should be settling down.
mm,
But this is where all those stress practices really come in, because it's our adrenals that take over making a lot of those
yeah.
hormones.
Yeah.
you know, but adrenals also make cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So if we're busy making all the freaking cortisol to keep going with our manic lives, we're not making those hormones.
Mm.
Cortisol is a survival hormone, and the body will always
Prioritize that.
prioritize survival over reproduction or anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, we are primed to survive, and the body will. And I think this is the thing, you know, is to be able to work with the body and get that deep understanding. You have to understand that.
Yeah.
No, your body is just doing whatever it can to keep living.
And it's not wrong. Like I hear
No, it's
such
not
a negative
wrong.
view
It
of
is dealing with what we're giving it, you know?
and the body is telling us and talking to us about what's not in balance, and it's like a wake-up call. And if there's any time for women to be starting a daily self-care practice, it's perimenopause. And I think many do because again, that is survival.
Yeah.
So what would you say, maybe if there's any, I mean, and we'll be, you know, covering more of this on the retreat, but for now, what would be if there was 5, because sometimes we can only remember 5, you know, something that holds in our hand. What would be 5, you know, this is on the spot for you, but 5 self-care practices that you would suggest a woman should do in a week? Like, let's not say every day, because that might be unmanageable, but if there's over a week, what would be the key things that you would be saying they should start to be looking at and considering?
Yeah. Well, my oh gosh, I don't know, for a week.
Well, maybe, I mean, if it was
Because
daily, but
I keep coming back to, we just have to either build on or rebuild foundations. Okay. So they start with, and I think you'll get the most bang from your buck
yeah,
if you look at stress reduction, you know, or stress management strategies.
yeah,
Okay. So that could be using herbs or nutrients that are appropriate for you and using them on a daily basis.
yeah.
I mean, you were saying, you know, oh, there's no science behind yoga or there's no evidence of yoga. I disagree, because there are studies.
I mean, I know there are, but
quote
there's
them.
equally as many that are doubting it.
Yeah, but there is a study that shows that it wasn't, you know, particularly yoga, but 10 minutes of stretching before bed reduces the incidence of night sweats and like overheating at night. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like that's, you know, really to get a good night's sleep. And I find even actually if you're not, you know, getting night sweats and things like that, that 10 minutes of stretching before bed
Gives you a better sleep.
it just improves the quality of your sleep so
Yeah.
much. So things like that, you know,
And getting up in the morning and exposure to sun.
well, yeah, that was my other thing. We are creatures of light. And we just have ignored that for so long now, you know. We need to see light in the morning, outside light, not the light coming from our lamps, but we need to see the sunrise each morning. You know, that blue light actually enters our retina, enters this supranuclear blah 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 part of our brain.
Is it near the pineal? Is it like linked to the
Yes,
pineal?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In yoga wisdom, it's the pineal, and this is why so much third eye meditation and
Yeah.
Brahmani and all these practices. It's cultivating just this hormonal balance through the
Yeah.
third
Well,
eye.
that's it. The amount of light that hits our skin and hits our eyes actually sets a whole, it triggers our hormonal diurnal rhythms,
Yeah.
you know?
So I mean, this is like, it's almost, yeah, these like the simplest, you know, I call them the lowest hanging fruit. What is because if we haven't got a lot of time and
Exactly. You
um
can be having your morning tea or your morning coffee if you want. You can be eating your breakfast.
I
Just
love
take
you that you
a cup
allow
of
us
time.
to have the occasional coffee. So many naturopaths say no, 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 like won't talk to you if you do.
Oh, look, you know, though I will say
Yeah,
that that is something that if you are under a lot of stress,
yeah.
you don't actually, it's not doing you any favors.
And the
So,
wine as well, because wine, midlife
oh
women are
yeah,
some of our biggest drinkers in Australia.
yeah, yeah. Yes, they are. And I have a lot of women as clients who would never have considered themselves alcoholics, but I consider an alcoholic as someone who cannot be without that substance,
Mm, mm,
you know? And when I ask them to stop drinking,
they find they can't,
they
or
find
find it
it
very difficult.
they find it very difficult, you know? And I just had a client in the other day who, yeah, we had to get really real about her drinking, you know? It wasn't, well, by Australian standards, would not have been considered a lot.
Mm,
But I felt that it was time to go. It wasn't doing her any favors, you
mm,
know? Alcohol is highly inflammatory
yeah,
and it creates a leaky gut.
yeah.
And it also does nothing. There is no safe level of alcohol for the brain.
And our liver, my understanding, our liver care is really important also through peri and menopause, so that we're
Well,
detoxifying on a regular basis, not just
yes.
alcohol, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, particularly in peri, because you can go through phases of very, very high estrogen, you know, higher than you've ever had in your life. Once again, this is normal. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to detoxify that. Otherwise, we get those symptoms of
Yeah,
estrogen
interesting.
excess, which is your heavy periods, you know, headaches, fluid retention, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, so detoxification is super, super important. So, yeah, so basically, yeah, it would be, you know, stress management. Let me count. Stress
Yep.
management, detoxification,
Yes.
because, and during menopause, this is really important too. You know, detoxification is really important because basically we live in environments where there are so many toxic environments. We can't escape it now. You know, these toxins are ubiquitous in our environment, so we need to just be able to, I mean, minimize where we can and make sure our detoxification systems are primed. Light, super important. Getting outside as much as possible, seeing light first thing in the morning.
Vitamin D.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's exactly it, you know? And keeping our household light and like household lights dim in the evenings and screen use in the evenings, you know. The studies say looking at screens 2 hours before bed affects the quality of our sleep. So I think it's kind of like, you know, dinner time, put them away.
Yeah.
So yes, what have we got? Stress, detox, light, food,
Mm,
massively important to be making sure that we are getting enough protein
yeah.
to support our bone health and to support our muscle health. So we have the propensity to lose a lot of muscle once we sort of start hitting our 40s, 50s, 60s. If we are not, so protein's really essential for survival as well, you know? So the body will prioritize protein going to things like our immune system, you know, things that will keep us
And we
alive.
live in such a fast carb diet, you know,
Yes.
I mean, world.
Yeah, yeah. People are often shocked at the amount of protein that they actually need to be eating for their particular body,
Mm,
you know? So that's really important. And exercise, you know, like, and weight bearing
mm,
exercise is so, so important. It's important, not we know that it's important for our brains.
mm,
But if you think about it, our biggest source of mitochondria, which is where we make ATP, which is where like we make our energy, is in our muscles.
mm,
More muscle we have, the more energy we have.
mm, mm,
Exercise and working those muscles also sends compounds up to our brains
mm,
to make more neural connections
mm,
and repair. So
Mm.
Okay, so that would be my 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well,
And
we'll
then
expand on them much more on the weekend, and we'll be eating lots of yummy food as well. So that's so much of the retreat will be around food and
yeah.
lots of yoga and exercise. But, you know, we will also, I think what I'm really keen is when you're doing your slot, which will be on the Saturday morning before lunch, we'll make it as engaging as possible as well. Like we've got this video now, which I'll be able to also share with women so they'll be able to see, you know, hear this kind of general overview. But I think what I experience in my one-day workshops is when women come, that we can really tailor for whoever's there what their needs are, and they will respond to that as a group. So we can really understand it from this whole, because usually there's a very diverse group that come. You know, people will
Mhm.
be, some women may be in perimenopause, some may be in post, on that continuum. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I can't wait. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I'll just say too, like feel free to put it out to the women that are coming. If they've got something that they want more information on, they're so welcome just to, let you know, and you can let me know.
Yes, and
And
I know you've got your
make
beautiful,
sure
you've
that we
got a
can.
resource on perimenopause. What is it? The perimenopause
I do.
survival kit?
It's a survival guide to
Survival guide.
perimenopause. So yeah, so that you can just download that, get that
I'll
from my
share it in a link below when this video goes
from
live.
my
So
website. So that just talks about some of the foundational things to help you through that transition phase.
beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. And I think, again, as we're talking, I'm really feeling that it's such a big area, and there's
Yeah.
so much. If collective we look at what we've got to do, because there's individually what each of us might be going through, but I also feel it's a kind of a reflection of our society. Our society is not doing much care or support for women at this stage, and I feel like that's a part of the tension, is that if at this stage of our life we're needing more of this self-care, more of this stress reduction, we're needing to delegate more, we're needing more supports, we're needing not this crazy life where we're working so hard to survive, to have a roof over our head. And this is a bigger socio-political context.
Yeah, well, I'll often put it to women, it's like another pregnancy. We change the way that we operate when we're pregnant, don't we? We
And then
tend to
after we have babies, we change how we operate.
Yeah, but you need to come in with that mindset that I need to change the way I'm living my life to support me to be my best self going through this transition, like I need to possibly and I don't know, and it does, like to really truly look after your health, it does often um require you to be in a more privileged position.
Well, because
You know,
we don't
because
have
we
a
don't
country
yes,
that
the society
supports.
doesn't support us through that. We are, I do think that women are quite invisible in a way during this,
They're
but
becoming less so. I feel like the
so
rise in the menopausal voice is there. It's what I'm keen to do is we keep the substance of our wholeness here
yeah,
and not succumb to what is at the moment, I feel like, a big bombardment from supplement pharmaceutical companies of quick fixes, because whilst some women may really need that, and I will acknowledge that, and they may need it because maybe they haven't got the privileges or the supports. But I do think there's this question of prioritizing. Like I know many women in my community who say they haven't got the time, and yet they go out to dinner, they drink lots of wine, so when we talk, we haven't got the resources or the time. It takes a really good stock take of, well,
yeah,
how am I spending my time? If I'm going and doing all this and at the end I'm wrecked and I'm not getting good night's sleeps, well, that's not doing your transition much good. And maybe there's some tweaks we need to do. But that change can be quite hard because we've sometimes got to let go of identities. We've got to let go
yeah.
of ways we've been doing it.
Well, this is it, I think, especially in Australian culture, when you stop drinking, that takes away, for a lot of people, it takes away their connection with others,
Mm,
you
mm,
know?
mm.
Um, yeah, it really, it's not as simple as, and yeah, going on these, yeah, going out for dinner, or, doing these sorts of things, like, yeah, it it requires you to think of new ways to
Mm,
connect with people, and that can be really hard,
mm.
because there's, your family and your friends can be the biggest source of support, but they also
Yeah.
can be the biggest source of the people who want you to stay the same.
Well, I know a lot of women who I work with, when they get to this stage, there can be a shedding of sometimes friendships, even partners,
Yeah.
um, quite a turbulent time of really looking at relationships. But the ones who I find who do that with courage, who listen to whether, really listen, do I want to spend time with this person anymore? And if they get a clear no, and then if they have the courage to start to move on and move towards relationships, or even just time with oneself, like relationship with self. Many menopause women are just seeking more time to self, and then more time in sacred circle or with other women who are journeying in this similar way, which is what this retreat has its essence. Because the one day workshops, I just found women would say they just want it to be longer, to just hang with other women who are consciously working with this on a deeper way, because it's not simplistic
No, no, not at all.
and we
It
can't
wouldn't
do it
be nice
alone.
if it was.
But we also can't do it alone.
No, no, no. I
Or
think
it makes it much harder to do it alone.
you've got to find your people. You've got to find your people. And yeah, and I think this retreat will be amazing for the women there
Mm,
to start finding some
yeah,
people,
yeah.
you know.
And to deepen our relationships. And
Mm,
beautiful.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, so thanks so much for your time, Lisa.
You're welcome. See you soon.